I love fun lens effects. It was my whole thing for a while. I had this whole style of neon portraiture taken at night that involved holding crystals and things in front of the lens to create a variety of wacky looks. Very 2018 core at this point. And while I eventually moved on as an artist from that fixation, I do still love a good lens effect here and there. And many of the people who I've worked with over the years still think of me as a lens effect photographer. So when SZ Filters dropped their new lineup of creative filters back in January of 2023, I had about 5 people send me their advertisement telling me to try them out. And you know how it goes on Instagram. If you click on an ad one time, that algorithm, it gets your scent. And if you click on the ad a second time, it's gonna sniff you out like a bloodhound. And so throughout 2023, every second ad that I got on Instagram was for these filters. And I wanted them. So finally this year, I worked up the courage to reach out to SZ Filters, and they agreed to send me a pair of their products to test out. Delight! They sent me the white hole filter. I got a white. No dirty jokes on this channel, I will refrain. And they also sent me the linear filter. And they also sent me this carrying case, which is a piece of technology that I did not know I needed until I had it. In this video, I'm going to go over the specs of the products and my experience shooting with them. I shot with them all summer, so I'm going to show you a ton of example photos, and I'll also compare these filters to similar products I've tried from competitors like Prism Lens FX and Nisha. I shot these in studio, outside, in a variety of lighting conditions, both strobe and continuous, and with different apertures and focal lengths, in order to give as comprehensive an overview of their functionality as possible. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. You can like this video if you like it. You can subscribe to my channel if you like photography-related content and you want to see more like it almost every week. And with all that said, and without further ado, let's jump right in and talk about specs. These filters are both 77mm filters. This is a very common filter size. And a fun fact, you can actually tell what filter size your lens takes by looking at the little number on the inside of the lens cap. The things you learn at camera shows, I tell you. The white hole filter has 3 components. It has a threading ring, a glass component, and a holding ring, which keeps the glass in place. The linear filter has these components, as well as an additional ring which allows it to turn while it's threaded onto the camera. The linear filter will smudge everything on one side of the frame, so being able to change the direction of the effect is quite useful. According to the website, this filter works best between f1.4 and f2.8. And based on my experience, I would agree. The white hole filter creates a soft halo effect around everything. It's got a little spot in the middle without the effect, and then a blurred halo around the edges. At a wide focal length, I find it's more obvious, and at a narrower focal length, or when you're zoomed in more, it just creates sort of a soft blur in the corners. For this reason, I quite liked it for portraits, because it just blurs the edges really romantically, and I found success with it at a variety of aperture settings. These filters retail for $80 USD per piece, which is pricey for a piece of novelty gear, but it's a fairly standard price point compared to other products offered by creative filter companies. The white hole isn't very heavy at all, but the linear filter definitely has some heft to it. And so you have to be considerate about when you bring it along to a photo shoot, whether it's going to be worthwhile to carry the extra weight. In addition to these 2 filter products, SZ Filters offers 15 different creative filter products, and they all look pretty fun. The most creative ones they offer, I think, are the Stardust, Gem, and Midas filters. The Gem and Midas filters contain a liquid core, so the particles shift around as you shoot, and this is one of the viral advertisements that people are sending me, and the results all look pretty fun. That's all that I had to say about specs, kind of a short section, and now I would like to talk about my experience shooting with these filters. I shot with these in studio, natural light, and a variety of conditions, as I said. Both are useful in a variety of situations, but I would say that in general, they both work best at low f-stops in continuous or natural light. The linear filter has a very prominent divide between the area of effect and the area with no effect. If you shoot higher than f4, you will start to see a little line in between. I photoshopped that line out of a few pictures and it looks fine, but just be aware of this potential. I found this filter also works best at narrower focal lengths as opposed to wider ones. I saw a bit of a line shooting wide even at f2 in some lights, whereas it always looks really good for tight portraits. Those cautions aside though, I do really like this filter, and I've used it in a bunch of my creative and colorful work to great effect. I used it for these photos in this shoot, and oh my gosh, I love these so much. I think this is probably one of my favorite studio sessions of the year so far. For this, I used it in conjunction with an optical snoot. So the optical snoot isolates a piece of light, and then the linear filter smears that light. I just think that's a really neat effect. I riffed with it a bit as well in this shoot and used it in conjunction with a mirror to create a more ghostly effect. I really like how these look in black and white as well. I've been experimenting more with black and white imagery lately, and this was a great tool for expanding that creativity. I think of the 2 of them, this one is my favorite, and it's just because it creates such a unique effect. That said, the white hole filter was also quite fun. This one works better at all f-stops. I was able to use it at f7 and f8 in studio, and because there's no really harsh lines on the filter, the effect was still fairly smooth and low-key. If you shoot it at a low f-stop, you're gonna get blur around the edges, and at a high f-stop, you're gonna get kind of a doubling effect around the edges, and I think both looks are pretty cool. Overall, this filter is fantastic when you really want to isolate something in the center of the frame. There's some examples on the SZ Filter website of people using it for weddings to isolate the married couple and kind of blur out the surroundings. I think that's a really impactful use of this filter, though I used it for one wedding and just for like 3 shots, and I told the bride and groom like, hey, I'm just gonna use this like creative filter for a few and get some kind of creative shots. And they were like, sure. And then when I delivered the gallery, they were like, do you have these ones but not blurry? I was like, okay, so it's not to everyone's taste. But I do think it's a fun creative tool to have around, and definitely for some wedding applications it would be really cool. My favorite shots taken with this white hole filter were from a shoot up at Queen Elizabeth Park in the Rose Garden, and these were shot at like f8 or f9 maybe, using my 24 to 70mm lens, and I had the sun behind the model and a Godox AD200 Pro blasting in her face. And the effect with this filter is striking. Like, I really like how these came out. It really captures this dreamy, mystical garden vibe with like a touch of editorial spice. Yeah, I really like them. I also took some shots on film during this set. This was captured with a 50mm lens on XP2, and for this one I just held the filter in front of the lens, and honestly I think these go pretty hard, like especially this one. I really like that one. The effect works out even when you just kind of hold the filter in front of the lens if it's not the right size. Something else I should mention is that I have broken both of these filters. One of them is definitely my fault, and the other one I want to put on the manufacturer. So let's talk about that. The linear effects filter, I dropped it while I was trying to pop it off of my lens. My lens is slightly bent because I dropped that too. And so the filter ring is just not quite circular. And so filters like tend to get really stuck on the end if I'm not careful. And I had a butter knife and I was prying it and it popped off and right onto the floor and it broke. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'll do a close-up thing. There's like a little piece missing. Luckily that piece doesn't show up in the photos that I take with it at all, so that's good. The white hole filter actually broke in a completely different way. I think I was just holding it and then it came apart into 3 pieces. I think it's because the components are screwed together, but they're not glued together. So with enough force over time, they come a bit loose. I was able to fix it pretty quickly by popping the pieces back together, but it is a bit looser now than it was and it rattles. So just be aware of that. It was easy enough to fix, but had it come apart while I was standing over a concrete surface, for example, I suspect it may have had deleterious effects on the glass. Overall, would I recommend these filters? Well, I really enjoyed them, and if your photographic style is similar to mine, I suspect that you will too. I'd recommend the white hole filter to people who like dreamy, natural light, couples, weddings, portraits type photography. And I'd recommend the linear filter to folks who like striking, spooky, dark and moody type stuff. Maybe if you shoot a lot of concerts or bands, this would be a cool choice. Before I wrap this video up, I want to take the opportunity to talk about 2 competitors offering similar products, Nisha and Prism Lens FX. How do SZ filters compare to these companies' products, and who has the best bang for your buck? Okay, so a bit of a tangent here, maybe a lot of a tangent. Back in the early days of my channel, a few of my most successful videos were reviews of Prism Lens FX products. And these videos popped off, okay? This was at a time when I was getting like 140 views per video on a good day. So getting over 1,000 views for talking about filters was a huge milestone. And I was like, okay, I've cracked the algorithm. All I gotta do is review filters and people are gonna watch my channel. But I have my gripes with Prism Lens FX. See, Prism Lens FX is very expensive, like very expensive. And I know, I'm sorry, this is a bit of a tangent. I am gonna get back to talking about SZ filters, but just let me have a moment here, okay? Prism Lens FX mission statement is to create unique and affordable filters. And their products are about $135 each, which is 185 Canadian dollars. And then for one filter, the cost to ship it to me is $51. My house is in Vancouver, okay? So you're shipping it from LA to Vancouver, it's like a 2-hour plane ride. $51 is a lot. And then the box shows up at my door and the courier tells me that I owe an additional $46 in import fees for one filter. So my total cost for one of these Prism Lens FX filters is almost $300. They're very expensive. Now back in the day, circa 2018, they were still just starting out and they had this whole small business handcrafted ethos, and I was okay to pay a bit of a premium to support what I perceived as a small business. I bought my first filter from them in like 2019 or 2020, and still very much in the indie small business years, and it was $70. That same filter is now $135. But since then, their new products just keep getting more and more and more expensive. Like, here we're paying almost $190 for a glorified star filter, right? Or like, this Flare FX filter is $140. You can get the same effect by putting dental floss in front of the lens. Like, calm down. And you may say, well, Yvonne, shipping and import fees aren't their fault. But some companies, B&H for example, build those fees into the price of their product and then handle it on their end, which feels like the right way to do it, because surprising your customers with an additional $46 in import fees after charging them $51 in shipping for an item that weighs less than half a pound is a bold move. No. Friendship ended with Prism Lens FX. SZ Filters is my new best friend. So anyway, tangent over. I started experimenting with competitors like Nisha, which is a smaller brand of filters that offers budget-friendly products. I don't know much about their company because they're actually really hard to find, and I think my video review of their products is the only one dedicated to them on YouTube. And it has like 300 views. But they sell a really wide range of creative glass filters, and honestly, the product lineup is really cool. They've got a ton of filters with different numbers of faces and different arrangements of vertices, and they offer them at different sizes as well, which is something that a lot of other filter companies don't tend to do. And these products are offered at a really affordable price point, which is definitely their main selling feature. Like, if you want to try out Prism photography without breaking the bank, Nisha Prism filters are a really great way to do that. You can get them on B&H Photo, and there's a bunch of new ones now since the last time I tried them out, so maybe I'll give them another look in the near future. But the problem with Nisha is that they are a budget product. Like, you get what you pay for. The glass quality is pretty bad, the casing is cheap, your images won't be as sharp. Sometimes the casing is really deep, so you get a bit of vignetting, and you'll get like this weird chromatic aberration and refraction effects in a lot of your photos. So they are super fun for creative, like lomography type photography, and I would super recommend them if you're just like wanting to experiment. But if you want professional results, you do need to go a step up. So that is where SZ Filters comes in. They are the newest addition to the fun filter family, and they have quite a few products. A few of their products are, let's say, derivative of Prism Lens FX, and they have a few products that are completely unique. The glass quality is really good. I had no problems with chromatic aberration or refraction or anything like that while I was shooting with them, and I'd definitely say the overall quality is similar to what you can expect from Prism Lens FX. They are, on average, $20 to $30 cheaper than their competitors' products, except for the completely unique filters, the Gem and the Midas with the liquid core, which I mentioned before, and those run at a premium. So the main benefit to buying SZ in my eyes, well, anecdotally, the shipping options were slightly cheaper for me, and the products overall are cheaper for everyone, but it's also a small business offering a much needed competition in the filter market. Like, until now, it's pretty much just been Prism Lens FX doing the Prism Lens filter thing, right? And now we're seeing a more diverse range of companies that are starting to offer their own products and kind of innovate in the same space, and I find that really exciting because I love these things. I am always down to see young businesses thrive, especially when they have interesting and unique products, and I'm always keen to see larger retailers have to compete for their market share. I like the SZ products that I tried. I got some great shots with them, and I will definitely be keeping them in my kit for future creative sessions. And this filter case is definitely coming with me everywhere. I didn't really talk about it, but it fits in my camera bag just right, and it holds the hodgepodge of creative filters that I like to bring with me everywhere. It also forces me to narrow it down to my top 6 filters, which is a bit of a challenge, but a worthwhile endeavor because these are heavy and I have back problems. That's all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful, or at least interesting, or fun, perhaps. If you do try out these filters, I would love to hear about how it goes. Let me know down in the comments what results you got, what products you tried. I'll be back next week with another video. I think it's going to be another product review, this time featuring the double shot camera from Flick Film. It is my new darling, so stay tuned for that. I will see you then, and in the meantime, I want you guys to stay sharp, and don't forget to keep shooting. Bye guys.